When Jennifer first went to this school, it seemed to her that she had come to the best place on earth. Spacious classrooms, tall windows that let out a lot of light, and sports fields that amazed with their scale. Her parents insisted on moving to the area because of the high ratings of the educational institution. They wanted Jennifer to get the best education possible. At first glance, the school really seemed perfect. Teachers greeted students warmly, and high school students talked about extracurricular activities. There was a spirit of friendliness and progress in the air. But something still made Jennifer feel strangely uneasy. At the old west wing of the building, which was rarely visited by students, the walls were covered with cracks, and the windows were often boarded up. No one mentioned this place much, as if it simply did not exist. But Jennifer couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on there after all. High school students sometimes talked in whispers about Wing 13, as it was called, although officially such a name did not exist. Her new friends told her that they once conducted experiments on animals there, that the room was closed due to an accident that happened many years ago. These rumors seemed like childish horror stories, but one day Jennifer noticed that even teachers avoided this part of the school. A few weeks after starting her studies, Jennifer found herself in the library looking for materials for an essay. There she met Evan and Lisa, two students who were considered a little strange because of their closeness. Evan said that there are reports in the school's archive about mysterious events related to the West Wing. "Have you heard about the fire?" "What is it?" he asked, pointing to an old faded article in the school newspaper. Jennifer read the headline, "Tragedy in the West Wing, Students and Teachers in Danger." The article talked about a fire that started under strange circumstances in a laboratory. Officially, the cause was called a malfunction of the equipment, but Evan did not believe it. "Something happened there, and the school's management is hiding something," Lisa added. Jennifer was interested. She was always curious and couldn't miss the chance to get to the truth. The next day, after school, the three went to the locked wing. Going to the old doors, which were lined with metal sheets, Evan pulled out a screwdriver. Lisa looked around nervously, afraid of being noticed. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Jennifer whispered. "If we don't find out the truth, then who?" Evan replied, removing one of the panels. They went inside. There was a smell of damp and dust in the air. The walls were covered with old wallpaper, of which only scraps remained in places. They walked down a narrow corridor, lighting the way with flashlights from their phones. The rooms in the West Wing looked like they were frozen in time. There were desks in one of them, covered with a thick layer of dust. There are remnants of chalk on the board. They found filing cabinets in another room. "Look!" Lisa called, pulling out a thick folder. There were protocols with student names and grades on the first pages, but towards the middle, entries began that looked more like reports. "The testing has been completed. The subjects showed the expected reaction. The program continues." "What does this mean?" Jennifer whispered. Evan continued flipping through the pages. He found blueprints that clearly did not belong to school projects. "It's not just a school. They tested something on the students here," he said. At that moment, a noise was heard. A door slammed somewhere ahead. They looked at each other, trying not to make any noise. "Maybe it's the wind?" Lisa suggested, but her voice was shaking. Evan whispered to hide. They huddled in an old closet, closing the door tightly. A few seconds later, footsteps were heard. Heavy, measured, they were approaching the closet. "There's someone here," Jennifer whispered, fighting back tears. Suddenly the footsteps stopped. There was a dead silence. Evan slowly opened the door, but there was no one in the hallway. "We have to leave before it gets worse," Lisa insisted. But Jennifer insisted that they continue the research. They found another door leading to the laboratory. The room was filled with old medical equipment, and there was a magazine on the table. Subjects 7 and 8 failed the test. Further isolation is recommended. Is this about the students? Lisa asked in horror. Jennifer froze. She found a photo in a magazine showing a group of teenagers in lab coats. There was an inscription on the back of the photo, "The team of the future." There was a loud knock. Someone was trying to open the door to the laboratory. Jennifer and her friends grabbed the magazine and ran to the exit. But when they rushed outside, Lisa suddenly noticed that their bags were left in the laboratory. "We can't go back," Jennifer said flatly. "It's better to lose things than lives." The next day, sitting in the school cafeteria, they discovered that the photos and notes taken in the West Wing had disappeared from all their phones. "Someone erased everything," Evan said. "They figured us out." Suddenly, a message came to Jennifer's phone. It did not contain any text, only a photo of the laboratory. Their abandoned magazine was visible on it. "They want us to come back," she whispered. Lisa shook her head. "It's a trap. We have to tell someone we can trust." "But to whom?" Jennifer, Lisa and Evan had a long discussion about what to do next. The internal conflict was tearing them apart. On the one hand, they realized that they were finding more and more frightening facts that could be dangerous for themselves. On the other hand, keeping it a secret meant that the school would continue its dark activities. "We should come back at night," Jennifer suddenly suggested. "Are you crazy?" Lisa reacted sharply. "This is crazy. Whoever sent us this message clearly doesn't want to do us any good. And if it's the other way around? If it's someone who wants to reveal the truth, but can't do it himself?" Jennifer persisted. Evan thought about it and finally said, "Jennifer is right. We've already gone too far. If we don't come back and find out everything completely, we will remain in fear." Lisa reluctantly agreed. They decided to meet outside the school at midnight to avoid the attention of security. The school looked very different that night. Her silhouette, illuminated by the dim lanterns, seemed huge and menacing. Jennifer, Evan and Lisa met at the back entrance. "Are you sure it's worth it?" Lisa asked for the last time, but Jennifer just nodded. The entrance to the West Wing remained ajar, as if someone had been waiting for them on purpose. They went inside, trying to move as quietly as possible. This time they knew where to go. When they reached the laboratory, they saw that there was a magazine on the table that they had left. However, it has now been revealed on another page. Jennifer's attention was attracted by the recording. The experiments should be completed before the end of the school year. Teachers and students participating in the project should not leave the territory. "What does this mean?" Evan whispered as he read the text. Lisa noticed strange footprints on the floor leading deeper into the laboratory. The tracks were fresh, as if someone had recently passed through here. "Someone's here," she whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Evan picked up an old metal tube that he found on the floor. "If someone comes out, I'll figure it out," he said, although there was no confidence in his voice. They followed the tracks carefully. The corridor grew darker and darker, and soon their flashlights became the only source of light. There was a rumble in the distance, similar to the operation of a generator. "Is there still electricity here?" Jennifer was surprised. The corridor led them to a metal door with a combination lock. Evan lit up the panel. "Do you think we can open it?" Jennifer noticed that there was an old piece of paper hanging on the wall nearby. It was a note. "Don't believe what they say. They are only looking for results. You're part of their game." "What kind of nonsense is this?" Lisa whispered, looking around. Jennifer found the numbers written on the back of the sheet and tried to enter them on the panel. The door opened with a dull click. There was another laboratory outside the door. But this one was completely different. She looked new, almost sterile. The walls were covered with tiles, and in the center of the room there was something that looked like medical capsules. "What is this place?" Evan asked, but no one could answer. They approached one of the capsules. Inside was a doll that looked like a human. But the longer Jennifer looked at it, the more it seemed to her that it wasn't just a mannequin. "It's the same. Is this a person?" Lisa's voice trembled. Evan picked up one of the folders on his desk and read. "The project is completed. A successful replacement." "Replacing what?" Jennifer asked, feeling her breathing quicken. At that moment, the hum of the generator became louder, and the lights went out in the room. Their phones started flashing and then went completely offline. "We have to leave," Lisa screamed. But the door they had entered through was now locked. "Someone's playing with us," Evan whispered. Suddenly, footsteps were heard. This time, they weren't heavy, but rather fast and chaotic. The footsteps sounded closer and further away, as if someone was deliberately creating chaos. Jennifer felt her fear grow. They hid behind one of the capsules, trying not to make any noise. "We have to find another way out," she said. Evan lit up the space with his lighter and noticed the ventilation shaft. "This is our chance," he said. Lisa helped open the grate, and one by one they began to climb into the narrow passage. The ventilation was old, the walls were covered with rust. Suddenly Evan froze. "What happened?" Jennifer whispered. "There's someone ahead," he replied. Lisa looked forward and saw the outline of a figure. But the figure didn't move, it just stood there. "This. Is it a mannequin?" Lisa asked, her voice full of panic. Jennifer slowly moved forward and realized that this was one of the dolls they had seen in the capsules. "How did she end up here?" she whispered. But before anyone could answer, the ventilation started shaking and they started falling down. They woke up in a large hall full of old equipment. There were screens on the walls that suddenly started turning on one by one. Faces appeared on the screens, the faces of those replacements. "You shouldn't have come here," an electronic voice said from the speakers. Evan stood up and shouted. "What do you need?" "Answers," the voice replied. A photo appeared on one of the screens, the three of them near the school. "They've been watching us all this time," Lisa whispered, trembling with horror. Jennifer, Lisa, and Evan stood there, exhausted and stunned. The screen in front of them showed their photos, one after the other, from different angles, at different times. They were surveillance photos, but some looked like they were being filmed from a hiding place. "How did they get it?" "We just got here today," Jennifer said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Evan rushed to the nearest table covered with folders and tablets. He feverishly flipped through the documents until he finally found one that made him turn pale. "What's in there?" Lisa asked. Evan read it slowly. Object 17, Status, Surveillance. Purpose, testing the response to stressful situations. Candidates, test subjects from Group A. Test subjects? Jennifer grabbed the paper from Evan's hand. "Is this about us?" Lisa went to one of the screens, on which data appeared, name, age, photo. Her heart sank when she saw her own information. "They know everything, where we live, who our families are, even what subjects we took at school." Suddenly, a bright light came on in the room, blinding them. The door, which they hadn't noticed before, slowly opened. "It's a trap," Lisa said, stepping back. But Jennifer didn't listen. She stepped inside, attracted by a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a child's crying. The room beyond the door was empty except for a large screen on the wall and a table with a microphone. But the crying continued, getting louder. Jennifer turned around, but none of her friends were behind her anymore. The door slammed shut, separating them. Evan and Lisa tried to open the door from the outside, but it wouldn't budge. "Jennifer!" Evan shouted. But her voice was not heard. Inside, Jennifer went to the microphone. "Who's here? Who arranged all this?" The screen came to life. A recording of the old school corridor appeared on it. There were children in the same uniform in the frame, their faces pale and lifeless. They were silent, but their eyes seemed to be looking directly at Jennifer. "This is some kind of mockery. Stop it," she screamed. But the screen suddenly switched to a live broadcast. The camera showed Lisa and Evan trying to kick down the door. A timer in the corner of the screen lit up, counting down 5 minutes. "The choice is yours," a voice rang out. "What's the choice? What do you want? Save your friends or yourself. Only one door will open." Outside, Lisa and Evan found another door leading to a dark hallway. "We need to find another way out," Evan said, looking around. They walked forward, lighting the way with flashlights. The corridor seemed endless, and soon they realized that their footsteps sounded strange, as if someone was walking behind them. "Do you hear that?" Lisa whispered, squeezing Evan's hand. He nodded, not taking his eyes off the darkness. Suddenly, a bell rang out of nowhere, loud and sharp, like a school bell for recess. Lisa screamed. "It's impossible. The school is abandoned." But the call was repeated. A faint light appeared ahead, and they walked towards it, although inside each of them there was a growing feeling that it was a mistake. Jennifer, meanwhile, watched as the timer on the screen continued to decrease. She couldn't find any button or lever to change anything. Damn, how can I make a choice if I don't know what to do? The screen switched back on. Images of the corridor Lisa and Evan were walking along appeared on it. "The choice is yours," the voice repeated. "The timer has reached the last minute." Jennifer screamed, banging on the table. "Tell me what to do." But there was no answer. Lisa and Evan walked over to the light source. It was another laboratory. There were tools and strange metal devices on the tables that they couldn't recognize. There was a note on one of the tables. "You didn't come here by accident. Your actions will determine the outcome. Don't even trust each other." Evan pushed the note away. "It's all a game. They want us to panic." But Lisa looked at him doubtfully. "And if it's not a game? What if they're really trying to prove something to us?" Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, and the room began to fill with smoke. "Evan! We have to do something." Evan rushed to the door, but it was locked. Jennifer saw it on the screen. She screamed, banging on the glass, but no one heard her. The timer reached 0 and the screen went off. The door opened behind Jennifer. She turned around and saw a man in a white coat, whose face was hidden by a mask. "Who are you? What have you done to my friends?" The man was silent, only pointing to another corridor. "I'm not going until I find out what's wrong with them," Jennifer said, but her voice was shaking. The man stepped closer, and Jennifer felt a surge of panic. The masked man silently approached Jennifer, forcing her to retreat. Suddenly, he spoke, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. "You were part of the experiment. All this is just a test of what a person is capable of in critical conditions. Where are my friends?" "Stop it," she screamed. He didn't answer, just pointed at the screen, which turned on again. Lisa and Evan were on it, suffocating in the smoke, their bodies weakening. Lisa fell first, her face frozen in horror. Evan stretched out his hand to the camera as if asking for help, but a second later he collapsed to the floor. "No! No!" Jennifer screamed, tears streaming down her face. The man leaned closer and whispered, "All this could have ended differently if you had made the right choice. It's all your fault." She shouted, but her voice was already weak. The man turned to the door and left, leaving her alone in the cold, empty room. Jennifer's strength left her. She sank to the floor, staring into space, as the screen came to life again. The experiment is over. The object survived. A few weeks later, the abandoned school was demolished. No traces of experiments were found, and the families of the missing teenagers did not wait for answers. The story of the school turned into an urban legend, which frightened children so that they would not go to abandoned places. But there is something left. Videos recorded on cameras inside the school began to appear on the internet. They were Jennifer, Lisa, and Evan. The last moments of their lives went viral, causing shock and disgust among viewers. No one has ever found out who posted these recordings. Thank you for reading to the end. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the new scary stories. Your support helps to release even more such stories. And, of course, happy Friday the 13th. Let your day be full of riddles, but only pleasant ones.